welcome to the Wise Owl Knits Fibercast. I'm your host, Cheryl Beckrich, and I am the knitter and designer behind the Wise Owl Knits pattern line. I appreciate you spending a little time with me today. I know you have lots of things to watch, and I really do appreciate you taking a little time to see what's going on in the Wise Owl Knits world. Today I am wearing one of my Wildflower tees, and we just completed a knit along. Had lots of people knitting along with us, and the knit along was over last Wednesday, April the 17th. So everyone who entered their FO on the Google form is eligible to win prizes today, and I've got two great prize packs that I will draw for at the end of the podcast. So keep watching. You'll probably see your sweater, and hopefully you won. First thing I want to get to today is things that I'm working on. And I am working on a cozy memory blanket that's a garter stitch mitered squares, and I have been using my leftover sock yarn from socks that I make on my circular sock machine for this blanket. So I'm going to do a bunch of 4x4 squares, so 16 mitered squares in each block of squares. This is the first one that I did, and it's finished except for the ends are not all woven in. And looking for your opinions, I think I will edge all of these 4x4 squares with some black yarn. I thought about white, but that's not really practical. In my house, things will get dirty, so I think I'm going to border them all in black, but I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it yet. I may crochet, or I may do garter stitch 5 or 6 rows across the top, 5 or 6 rows across the bottom, and then each side, so each side will overlap. They'll butt up against each other. So that is kind of what I'm thinking for right now, or I could just go around in a circle and miter each corner. So that's a possibility too. And it would be the opposite kind of mitering that I'm doing here, because I'll have to do increases to get a mitered corner on each square. So that has been really an enjoyable project for me, or this is an enjoyable project for me. I was kind of at the place where I have done quite a bit of designing lately, and I've got some things that are in the works that you haven't seen yet, but I needed something that was just a palette cleanser that I could do without thinking. And it's really very addictive. You just want to keep going and going. So I kind of have to pull myself back from that so I don't work on that all the time and not work on some other things that I should be working on. My cup today is the one that I almost always use, and it's just a Contigo coffee cup, and it's got lots of stickers from Shark Week on it. I just had to get a refill. It's early afternoon, and I got up early this morning, so I needed another little jolt of caffeine. And I'm pretty much an all-day coffee drinker. Doesn't seem to bother me at night, so just having a little sip here and there. The other thing that I've been working on that I can show you is basically an FO now. And this is the baby sweater for a little boy. I need to just put the buttons on. And the buttons that I was thinking of using are these, but I think I may get some white buttons instead. These are okay, but they're a little lighter. If they were a darker navy, I think they would work fine, but I can hold this up a little bit closer. I think they're just a little too light. You can let me know what you think on that too, but I'm pretty certain that I'm going to go with something, either a white or a navy. I don't have any navy, and the whites that I have, none of them match. So that means either buying something online or a quick trip to Joann's to get a few buttons. Joann's is pretty close, so that's probably what I'll do, and then I can take the sweater with me and match them up as I go. So those are the two things that I've been working on besides socks on my circular sock machine. And I'm going to insert a picture here of two pair of socks that I made for my friends Barb and Ray, and then another pair of socks that I made for one of our priests. His are black. He probably will want some other pairs once he tries these on and know if they fit okay. But those he can wear to work, so they'll match almost everything that he has is black. So that's where those are going. I've got still a little backlog of socks that I need to crank out for people that have requested them, and most of them are paying for the yarn, and then I'll crank the socks just to give myself a little bit more experience doing that. I have made myself a spreadsheet where I keep track of every sock that I'm making, and also I've made a chart for the different yarns that I'm using, and I'm trying not to use too many different yarns because every yarn works a little bit differently and has a slightly different stitch gauge and row gauge. So limiting the number of yarns that I'm using makes things a little bit simpler when you're trying to figure out people's size. I have not figured out how to use my ribber yet, so that is still something that needs to be worked out. And I probably, because we're getting to warmer weather and I want to be outside more, that's probably going to be on hold until the fall when I have cooler days where I can spend inside. But if it's nice out, I would rather be outside doing something active or knitting outside on the deck, and the circular sock machine is not super portable. It's really heavy. Could theoretically take it outside and use it, but that's more work than I really want to do. Another thing that I wanted to talk about with the circular sock machine is before you knit anything, you have to put the yarn on a cone. Before you put it on a cone, you have to wind it into a ball. Most of the yarn that I'm using comes in a skein. So going from this skein to a ball is not super hard, but you can either pull it from the inside and get a big blob of yarn that you have to untangle before you can start winding, or you unwind from the outside and then it collapses, and then at the end you get another blob of yarn that you have to unwind before you can finish winding it into the ball or the cake. So I have tried a couple of different things, one of which is something that I saw on the Shauna Stitches podcast. And this is a little yarn holder, and you can see I've got a skein of yarn from Skeins. This is Pulse from Skeins that is on this. There's a magnet up at the top, and this works very nicely holding your skein, but when you're winding a cake from this, it moves around too quickly and this falls off. So this was something that I tried for that. Didn't really work, but it does work great if you're sitting and knitting on the couch and you have this on your table in front of you or on your footstool. It's I got it at Amazon, which is where Shauna said she got hers too. They're not very expensive. They're about $20 and well made, easy to put together. The base here on the spindle you have to screw on, and then you also have to screw this arm onto the base of the whole contraption. And it comes with a little teeny screwdriver that fits the screw, so it's very easy to get put together and works well for what it is intended to do, which is hold your yarn while you're hand knitting or crocheting. Does not work so well if you're winding a cake from it. So I'm glad I got it. I know I will use it, but it didn't really fit the intended purpose. I had been doing some other things, like I've got a big bag that I made that I quilted, and I would put the skein yarn inside the bag fully open at the top. It has kind of a clamshell, and then just wind from that, and this could flop around on the ground inside the bag or flop around on the bottom of the bag. And you know, that worked pretty well. I don't let it just flop around on the ground because I have a dog with lots of yellow hair that will get all over everything. So even when I'm doing it from the bag, if you get going too fast, this thing will be bouncing around and it'll fly out of the top of the bag. So I'd have to stop and pick it up. And then, like I said, when you got to the end, it always got tangled up anyway. So what I ended up doing was getting a paper towel holder that is supposed to be an under the cabinet paper towel holder, and I'm going to insert a picture of that right here. This one had adhesive on it so that it could stick to the underside of the cabinet, but it also had some screws. So I've put it underneath one of my work tables in my yarn room, and I stuck it on. I haven't screwed it on. It said to let it set for 48 hours before you used it, so I did that. And I've wound 5 or 6 cakes from it, and it's working great. So that was a success, and I'm happy that I got that. It's kind of fun to figure out solutions for little problems like that will make your life a little bit easier. So, adventures of winding yarn into a cake so that you can then wind it into a cone to use with your circular sock machine. These socks, between the stuff that I'm buying, between the cost of the yarn, between the cost of the machine, and the time it's taking to learn how to use it, are not inexpensive socks. But they're fun to make. It's fun to learn. It's great to engage your brain. And I really, really love the socks. When I'm out of my hand cranked socks or hand knit socks, because they really feel very much the same on your foot. When mine are all in the laundry, I'm kind of disappointed that I have to put on regular socks from the store, because they're just not the same. I haven't convinced all my kids that yet, and maybe the first ones that I made for them didn't fit too well, so I need to get them convinced that they should try a few pairs before they totally blow them off. Anyway, they're young adults. They can decide to do things as they want, and it's not always the way that I want, but because I would like to give them socks over and over again. Those are my adventures with new solutions to make working with the circular sock machine a little bit easier. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is a little bit about my design process and how I guess, come into a new era of my designing that I didn't think I probably would do because I wasn't super fond of this particular type of knitting, and that is color work, which is what's on the Wildflower. Several years, I normally do just tons and tons of cables, and I still love cables and I will still do cables, but I have, I guess, gotten to a point where I am doing more and more color work, circular yoke type sweaters that you knit from the top down. And I really liked that type of knitting. It seemed a little tedious to me. Not that it was hard, but I probably wasn't as good at it because I hadn't done very much of it. I didn't particularly like the aesthetic of Fair Isle sweaters, but I did enjoy some of the more modern versions of the colorwork sweaters. I did a couple of Caitlin Hunter's patterns. I did the Nanilchek Swancho, which when I was making that I thought, a swancho, that seems really impractical. So it's like a poncho with sleeves, and I've done several of those in cable, several patterns. And so I made the Nanilchek. I'm probably saying the name wrong, but I made that and I love it. I wear it a lot. Just having the sleeves in the swancho makes it way more practical. So I enjoyed that color work, and I was getting ready to go on the Epic Vacation 2, which is a month-and-a-half long trip that I took with my sister and my niece, and we loaded up her Silverado truck and trailer and really went all over the Northwest and came back through the central part of America, not Central America, but the central part of America. So we started off heading up north to Minneapolis and then went through South Dakota and on to Yellowstone and Grand Teton and Olympic National Park, and then came down through Redwoods and Colorado over to Nevada, down to Utah, and then back through Colorado. 17 national parks we hit. But for a trip like that, you need some good knitting. And we had a really limited amount of space because there were 3 of us in a small trailer. Couldn't take very many clothes, but I knew I had to take some knitting, and I wanted to take something that was small but interesting, that I could do in short bursts without having to worry about paying attention a whole lot. And so I settled on, oh my gosh, now I'm not going to remember the name of it. Oh. I know you guys are yelling at the TV right now. I know you are. Dummy, dummy, dummy. Soldatna. I didn't get to look, but my Soldatna. So I gathered up some yarn that I had. There was a yarn store in town that was going out of business, and I went and got some. I got sport weight really for all of it, and that's, I had the blue is a DK, but it was a pretty light DK, so that's what I did the whole sweater in. I really consider it all sport weight, but I did the Soldatna, and I just loved knitting it. The whole time I'm knitting it, I'm thinking, I am not ever going to wear this because it's cropped and it's just going to be something fun to do, and maybe I'll give it to my niece when I'm done. But I finished it basically all on that trip. Really, I did finish it all on that trip, and then I had to do some other things. Had to find some more knitting to do, and of course I brought some backup yarn and patterns, so I was okay. But I enjoyed knitting the Soldatna so much, and I wore it. I wear it with dresses. That really kind of set me on the path of thinking that color work isn't so bad, and it's kind of fun. And I mean, it's more than kind of fun. It's satisfying when you finish one section and move on to the next. It's fun to change colors, and I really more and more like the look. So then I moved on to the faux set by Knitting McPurley, and she had a knit along last spring for the faux set, so I joined in and used some stash yarn for that. It's a little cropped too, but not quite as cropped as the Soldatna, so I wear it also with dresses. And once I was finished with that, I thought, you know, I'm going to try my hand at designing a colorwork top-down yoke, circular yoke sweater, and that's when I did the Wildflower. And I've got, I mean, hopefully you guys like this sweater. It seems like it's been very popular, and I'm selling a lot of the patterns, and I had quite a few people participate in the knit along, which was just, it's really fun to see people all knitting the same thing and choosing different yarns and making all different sizes, because I did it first for adults, but then I made a second version that's babies, kids, and teens. Some people made the sleeves long or 3/4 length. All kinds of just beautiful color combinations. So that's been super, super fun. And it's just really satisfying to see many people enjoying the pattern. of all the people that knit, of course, you know, there's a lot of people in any knit along that don't finish, but I think they're still happy that they are participating and they'll have their sweater at the end. But unfortunately, you had to finish to be eligible for prizes. I've got 2 prizes. They're both in bags from Delightful Works and yarn from Mystery Mouse Yarn Co. There will also, with each of these, each of the prizes, so there's 2 prizes, there will also be a coupon for a pattern of mine. So without further ado, I put all the names in this little, it's just a little container for plants really, but I use it to put pencils and things in. So we'll pull out the first name. Laura Rowe. Laura did, I believe, a sweater that is, the main color is green. It looked really nice. Okay, and the second one, Lynne from Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. Lynne is a lucky person because it seems like on the podcast that I watch, she wins a lot of prizes. So Lynne is the winner, and Laura, congratulations to both of you, and I will get a hold of both of you to get your home address to send your prizes to. But thank you so much for participating, and congratulations on winning. We're going to move on to the comment section. Last podcast I talked about a pillow that was for sale on Instagram, which is kind of the bane of my existence right now, because I keep seeing things that look good and they're very good at selling them to me, so I've got to cut that out. But anyway, there was a pillow that really was originally marketed to gamers, and it goes around your body and sits on your lap so that you can lean on it without hunching over. So they were kind of marketing that to knitters and crocheters, and I had wondered if that would be a good thing or not. But I got a comment from Lefty Crochets and Mirror Knits, so she must be a lefty, a left-hander. That type of pillow, she says, is also sold as a nursing pillow. There's a crochet pattern to make one. I made one using the pattern, and it is helpful. The designer is Ashley Konecny. Konecny? I don't know. But I had kind of thought that too, that nursing might be another application for that pillow. So thank you, Lefty. Sharon Hoyt says, I'm just now watching this 2 weeks later, so you're probably ready to put up a new podcast. Well, I was at 3 weeks this time. I've tried to do every other week, but it doesn't always work out. I hope you can keep doing it. I enjoyed getting to know you more. About that pillow, it doesn't appeal to me. I need my elbows to hang free and be comfortable. Armrests are usually too high for me and tend to raise my arms too much, and that causes strain on my shoulders and arm fatigue. Maybe I'm just more short-waisted than most, and probably not, but I'm long-waisted. Short legs, long waist. Maybe I'm just more short-waisted than most. As it is, I have a tendency to hold my knitting up too high. I have to remind myself to relax my shoulders and hold it lower. That's more comfortable for me. I think the pillow would be counterproductive. And, you know, that's another good point, is we are all so different, and you need to work with what you have and the way that you knit, and do your best to make it ergonomical for you. But I think we all need to be mindful of sitting up straight and not rounding our shoulders forward. So as long as you have a comfortable position that doesn't make you slouch over, and you know, we have so many things that we look down at besides our knitting, our phones, of course, our computers at work, our computers at home. So if we can make a conscious effort to have good posture, I think that's helpful for all of us, especially as we age. So beautiful said, your wildflower tee is stunning. I need to make one, probably in copycat colors to yours even. I'm not sure which one I showed on that podcast, but I think I was wearing the last one I made, which is the one that is kind of a turquoise blue. Elizabeth, who took part in the knit along, was talking about snapping the yarn before you wind it, and that's when you have a hank of yarn, and before you wind it, you undo the hank. I'll just show you this again. This was from Devin at Knitting McPurley, that you put your arms in both ends and do this 8 or 10 times before you wind. And I did that last week on the podcast with some Malabrigo yarn that I've had for probably 7 or 8 years. And Malabrigo, when I worked for a couple of years in the yarn store, I love Malabrigo yarn, but it could get so stuck together and so tangled that every time you did it, every time you had to wind Malabrigo, you're like, hopefully this will be a good one, or I'm going to be stuck here for 15 minutes trying to get it unwound and figure it all out. It wound perfectly after snapping it. Now, maybe it would have wound perfectly with nothing at all, but the snapping in that particular case in a yarn that is really known to be tangly and sticky, that helped. I'm pretty sure that helped. So Elizabeth said she tried the snapping thing, and as I was winding, the cake flew off my winder. Have you ever had that happen, where if it's just too loose, if you don't have enough tension on it, and maybe the snapping reduced the tension, and then you get going quickly and it just flies off? I've got a wooden winder now, but back when I was using a royal winder, that would happen every once in a while. So I usually hold on to the yarn as I'm cranking, hold on and crank at the same time, and that just adds a little more tension to the yarn that's going in. She also said the pillow is a great idea, but I'd rather spend $75 on yarn. I hope you keep doing the podcast. I really enjoy it. I did say that, not tons of people are watching, but I've decided that I'm gonna keep going because I enjoy doing it, and it gives me a little bit of a record of what I'm doing. So I probably will keep going at least for another year. This actually is kind of the 1 year point for me. I don't know the exact date that I started, but I know it was mid-April last year. So I'll keep recording. I really would like to do it on an every 2-week basis, but sometimes it'll probably be more than that. It just depends on what's going on in life, and there are always lots of things that are going on in life. So it would be, I'd really love to be able to do it every week, but I know that I don't have enough to show you every week. Sometimes I feel like my progress is so slow. But that's real life for me, so every other week I think seems to be a good goal, and it will probably be that way most of the time, and every once in a while it might be 3 weeks. So that's the plan for the 2024-2025 year. Okay, I think the last thing today is a word. And this is, I'm grabbing my definition here. This is a word that I have heard of for a long time, but did not know the exact meaning. It must have been around April 15th when I heard it. I think maybe the weekend before. April 15th, as you know, is tax day here in the United States. So that's the due date that we have to submit our federal and state income taxes by. Maybe not every state is April 15th, but Indiana is April 15th. So the word is excise. And I was listening to a guy talking on the radio, and this was on a home and garden show, so it wasn't anything to do with taxes at all. But the guy is a plumber, but he also is a financial kind of a guy. So he said that we haven't always had income taxes, which is correct. He said most of our taxes originally were excise taxes. And I had heard the term excise tax when we get our license plates, our car tags here in Indiana. There is a tax that's called the excise tax, and it's based on the value of your car. So when you get a new car, your excise tax is high, and then every year as your car reduces in value, that excise tax goes down a little bit. And then if you've got a car that's 20 years old, your excise taxes bottom out at a certain point. I can't remember exactly what that is. But so excise means an internal tax levied on the manufacture, sale, or consumption of a commodity. So a good example of an excise tax was tea. The Boston Tea Party, tea was taxed. That was an excise tax. There are also excise taxes on cigarettes and alcohol. So anything where the tax is on a specific item or privilege is called an excise tax. As I said, I'd heard of the word because it's always on our license plate renewal forms, the excise tax, and it's higher in Indiana than it is in most of the surrounding states. So, you know, in the surrounding states, people are paying just a small portion of what we have to pay here, and that is because of our excise tax. Now maybe they still pay those taxes, but it's at a different spot. Maybe it's on their state income taxes, or there's some other way that they collect it. But in Indiana, It's when we renew our license plates. So I had known that word, but when he said all taxes were originally excise tax, it just set my mind wondering exactly what that meant. So that is what excise means in this particular application. And there are some other meanings, like one, it can be used as a verb to remove by or as if by excision. So kind of a cutting out. And maybe the excise tax cuts out some of your consumption of a particular item because you don't want to pay that tax on it. So excise, the word of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you see, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you back in another couple of weeks. Bye now.